do hear you and I do truly agree with you, but I also think like, well, let me ask you this. Do you feel like we should put a timeline though on, because part of your quote was be impatient with progress. Should we put a timeline on black liberation?
No,
like,
because we're consistently evolving. Yeah.
We had this debate on the phone the other day.
Yeah.
Where Yanaya feels like some black people, right now everyone, black people always constantly blaming the government and saying, I don't have this, I don't have that, blah, blah, blah. And we have to wake up and start holding ourselves accountable. Yeah, right? That's one true. That's one part. I agree with that. But what I was also trying to explain to Yanaya is that like sometimes it is hard to how can you be held accountable for something you don't know?
That's also true.
Right? And she feels like we should put a timeline on our liberation, because like she's basically saying that, let's say in we're in 2024. She's like, in 2050, should we still be blaming the government? Should we still, be having the same issues that we have here now in 2024? Yeah.
These issues are just going to evolve because the systems are going to figure out different ways to operate just as they are now. But that means that we also have to be even smarter and create new solutions, which we will do. So, I mean, we have to take into account, you don't have 400 years of oppression, systematic oppression at that, and then you just rid yourself of it in 2 to 3 decades. That's not how it works. But we can make change, and that change doesn't have to be incremental. But to pretend as if we're going to dissolve public housing in 20 years and everyone will be getting paid a living wage, or Social Security and or TANF won't be necessary in 20 years. Those things just aren't true. And furthermore, we also have to keep in mind that these are not solely black issues. Like it is classism. Yeah, classism is real. Yeah. And if we're being quite frank and candid, there are instrumentally more white people taking advantage of welfare, TANF, public housing assistance, and things of that nature than black people. Part of that is because they're larger in number, but these systems as a whole have created a race of people, a class of people who are just seen as less than, don't have access to capital, don't have access to resources, don't have several health inequities, several educational inequities. So while yes, there can be more that is done, we can't take into account, or we can't discount the effects of the psychological impact of some of the traumas that we have had to live through, and then how those traumas manifest in a wide variety of different ways. And that's where the grace and patience with each other has to come into play. And then that means we have to do that much more.
I just personally think that sometimes like being in the schools with the kids really just helped me change my mindset in so many ways.
On the ground.
Yes, on the ground, literally, because like I see how like they have no idea, like no idea about a lot of different things. So it's just like.
But did you at their age?
To a certain extent, I had a certain level of knowledge, right? Because
and you think there's none of the kids in your school who know any of the things you do?
No, yes.
So some do.
Some do, and some got it, and some don't, right? But I also think that there's a lot of differences between I would say, well, we all in the same generation, but I would just say like my class versus like a lot of these young people. Like you can just see like their heart and like it's not there. Like it's like they all just seem really depressed, like all just really down. Like even to the comments that they'll make. Like yesterday I was in the school, I'm talking to the kid, I'm like, what's one thing in your life you really want to change? And this is an 8th grader. He's like, depression, poverty, right? And these are like real things that they're saying. And you have some kids who are just saying it just to be funny, right? Because they think like that's what makes them cool, right? So it's like when you're seeing that and you're hearing that, and some of these kids who are actually genuinely depressed and lost, right? It's like, how do we go about helping them? Like, how do you go about bringing life into someone who's like at the age of 14, they feel like everything has been taken away from them?
Yeah, consistency. Us being consistent with implementing strategies to help them understand their value and getting them to where they need to be. But then there's also a role of patience, because we have to keep in mind that these individuals are 13, 14, 15 years old. They have access to a wide variety of different things that others didn't, i.e. social media. So they're having access to terminology that prior generations didn't. They have access to seeing and being exposed to things that prior generations may not have been exposed to so rapidly. And because of that, we have to develop new strategies to assist in their development, while also maintaining and understanding the fact that that's not a 100% absolute for all children.
Yeah, very true.
And because it's not a 100% absolute for all young people who may be living in poverty or who may be living way above the socioeconomic line, or their parents may make a ton of money, there's still a need for growth and development within every child, as there is a need for growth and development within every person. So being gracious with them as we're gracious with ourselves, and consistently imparting knowledge to the best of our ability, in my personal opinion, is how we get to where we need to go. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
It's a fact. Nipsey Hussle.
Facts.
Facts. All right. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit and talk about the Freeman Bank story.
Okay.
Right. So my whole thing is,